You like that? You like that?
We're in a good place. I think we're in a really good place. I'm really, really excited to play next to Ole. I think he's done an unbelievable job. I'm really proud of him for the strides he's made. And I think a lot of people are going to be really happy with Ole. And, Garrett leads the show. He's done an unbelievable job for us. Our communication's been on point. Ezra's only getting better. And Rashad has always been able to hold it down out there. So I love our group. I love our coach. I love our assistant coach. We got a great room. And this is the most excited I've been about an offensive line here. And I think hopefully we'll be able to see the results. But we got to go out and prove it. And we got to go out and prepare today in order to have success on Sunday.
I think the $92 million might also have something to do with why Brian O Neill is very excited.
Football.
That's what. Yeah. Well, this is Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company for adults over the age of 21. I'm Phil Mackey. That's Judd Zolgad. We got our executive producer, Declan Goff, who's also double dutying here as we record this episode at night while he's on kid sitter duty. Do you even know that child, Declan?
Yes, this is Arnie. This is Arnie McEnroe, as I just scared the crap out of him. He's a Bears fan, unfortunately. His mom and dad are Bears fans.
Oh, no.
But mom and dad aren't here. So I think there's still time to convert him over to this dark side of the family here. But I do feel like I'm living in a Twilight Zone episode. I'm in the suburbs. I have a podcast studio set up. I'm holding a baby. I don't know if this is like a glimpse into my future.
Can we get him to do the Skol chant?
Arnie's tired. And here's the way I see it. His team might have a quarterback now, so why would he want to switch to the Vikings now?
That's a good point, yeah.
Like Justin Fields. I mean, this kid doesn't know the pain of Bears fans and quarterbacks.
No.
This kid has no idea about Sid Luckman being the last great Bears QB. This is a boon to be born right now. This kid's got nothing but bright days of Bears football ahead of him.
I don't know if I go that far
I don't know
with the Chicago Bears, but we'll see.
I'm trying to be positive, okay? It's a youngster.
So, Dex, are you gonna?
I'm gonna
Do you have to go and do babysitter things, or what's your?
And I will be back. That is my goal. That is my goal.
Sounds
Hopefully.
good.
I'll mute
All
the
right.
microphone unlike Judd.
All right,
Okay.
sounds good. Yeah.
Bye,
All right,
Dex.
So,
Life
Daily Vikings entertainment, and also, hey, life advice, babysitting advice, relationship advice. You get it all here on Purple Daily. Thanks to those of you who are watching us on the Purple Daily YouTube channel on a TCL TV. TCL has an award-winning set of TVs. In fact, I just got done watching Bachelor in Paradise on mine a little earlier tonight. They're delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. So, Judd, what are the contract details? Hot off the presses, the ink has barely dried. Brian O Neill strikes it rich today. What are the officials? What are the guarantees here? What are we talking about?
According to my sources, Adam Schefter telling me that his report is it's a 5-year extension that's going to take him through 2026. So 2021 is the last year of his rookie contract. I think it's $2 million plus. That stays intact. It looks like the 5-year extension is worth $92.5 million. Now here's the important thing. So 92.5 is impressive. I mean, it sounds great. The important thing is 49 million of that is guaranteed. So that's the real figure. Brian O Neill becomes the second highest average salary among NFL right tackles, behind only the Saints' Ryan Ramczyk, who signed earlier this offseason, and he is at $18.5 million per season. So O'Neill passed the Indianapolis Colts right tackle, and he is now second. And I've seen people questioning this on Twitter. I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's absolutely a fair and fine contract. This kid has stepped in, second round pick in 2018, started 11 games as a rookie, 15 games, missed one game in 2019, and started all 16 last year. And I mean, we can quibble all we want, but on an offensive line that has been probably rightfully criticized, Phil Mackey.
Oh, yes.
How often have we talked about, Brian O Neill didn't look good? Very rarely. So he should have gotten paid, and he did. Yeah.
So, by the way, I see this as well from Sean Borman, Vikings writer. Brian O Neill received a $20 million signing bonus, the most in Vikings history for a non-quarterback. Now, some of this obviously is the cap continues to go up, although it didn't last year.
Right.
Or it came down. It'll go back up. Mm-hmm. So, I think I agree. They had to do this. He's their best offensive lineman by a mile. He's in his prime. You need pillars on that offensive line. Remains to be seen if they have a long-term left tackle. Remains to be seen if they have a long-term center. I think those are the three biggest, most important pillars. I think my only question here would be, he has been pretty regularly graded the last 2 or 3 years as a good, not great right tackle by outlets like Pro Football Focus. The Vikings paid him great money at that position. Do you think O'Neill's camp knew the position the Vikings have been in with offensive linemen lately and said, listen, like, these guys are desperate? I guess my question is, how much of a desperation contract is this for the Vikings, who just don't have anyone other than O'Neill that they can trust for sure for the next 5 years along that offensive line?
I don't know why I would call it desperation. I guess my question back to you would be, when you drafted this guy in the second round, and we certainly have been critical of the Spielman picks that have not worked, how would you have felt if he played this year out, and it was a 4-year contract because he's not a first-round pick, so there's no fifth-year option, and then walked? Because to me,
you can't let that happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's fair. And the other thing too is, Phil, I think so. I think the whole thing, because I mean, we've got friends at PFF and they do great work, and these sites do a lot of good work and quantify things. But I think tackle play is easier to eye test than interior line play sometimes. Mm-hmm. And for two guys that watch all the Vikings games, sometimes it's fun to watch them, sometimes it's not.
Football.
How many times have you come away from a game saying, Brian O'Neill was not really good? Like in 2019, Riley Reef was not good eye test wise. In 2020, he picked it up. I'm going to say this right now. I don't remember doing many Purple Dailies or Mackie and Judd's where we came back and we're like, oh boy, the problem with the offensive line was the right tackle.
Yeah,
that's eye test.
Yeah, and I'll give you the analytics here. I'll give you the numbers. How many sacks would you guess Brian O'Neill allowed last season?
0 or 1. I'm going to guess he didn't allow many.
It was 3.
Okay.
He allowed 1 in week 1 against Green Bay, another one at Seattle, and then against Jacksonville in week 13. He allowed another one.
Okay.
He only allowed 26 pressures all season, so about like once, maybe twice a game. The most he gave up in any game was 3 a few times. Mm-hmm. And in about 5 or 6 of the games, he allowed 0 pressures. So, I don't think he's going to the Hall of Fame at this point, but he's just a rock solid, above average, really good right tackle. Like I said, my only nitpick is that they paid him like he's one of the highest paid right tackles now, the second highest paid average annual value in the NFL. Now that happens sometimes when we see it at quarterback, where whoever's next up as a free agent just becomes like the highest paid quarterback. It's Matt Ryan, it's Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of seeing the same thing here. But yeah, and it's funny though that this comes literally like an hour after Mike Zimmer went up to the podium today and kind of I couldn't tell if he was taking shots at Spielman or like player contract specifically, but he said, I am concerned about the depth on this team. It's hard when your finances are so top heavy, or however he phrased it, and then they go and they do it again with Brian O'Neill. But
I got a question
they have
for
to.
you.
They have to.
I got a question for you off that, because that quote came out during Purple Daily this morning when we taped it, or yesterday now in this case when we taped it, and my immediate response to you was that seems like a sort of another sideways shot at Spielman, but I gave it more thought. Is it a sideways shot at Spielman or a Kirk's contract again?
I think he's always been down on Kirk's contracts, even before they signed it.
But I guess my question is that comment just another layer on the already disintegrated relationship with the quarterback? Because I will say this: if we take the over the cap salaries and the cap situation for the Vikings right now, and for 2022 we take out Kirk's contract, all of this becomes much more doable, right? You're paying O'Neill, you're paying him a lot, but you're right. He's going to get passed quickly. Like, he's not going to be the second highest paid right tackle for an indefinite time period. The Dalvin Cook contract. I love Dalvin Cook. Fantastic player. He's paid a lot though, but all of a sudden if Kirk's contract is gone, and let's just say Kellen Mond works out, now that contract looks decent again. Justin Jefferson is obviously at some point in time here in the next few years going to get paid. I guess my point is, if you take out Kirk's contract, which I think it might come out for 2022, because I think it might be a situation where you can't absorb that cap hit, and I don't know he's going to do you more favors. Now all of a sudden these contracts that we're talking about, which are sort of pinched by because of one huge contract, become more palatable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously you have to pay players once they come off their rookie contracts. I think you have to be careful not to just overpay players because you drafted them and now they're free agents, and the Vikings had to make decisions on like Trey Waynes when he was a free agent, and they've had to make similar decisions. In general, I'd rather overpay for offensive line than like Anthony Barr. I think the Vikings overpaid for Anthony Barr. I get why they did it because Mike Zimmer feels comfortable with Anthony Barr. Mike Zimmer vouched for them to draft Anthony Barr as the number 9 overall pick. I'm just looking at 2022 and some of the contracts here that the Vikings have on the books. So Kirk Cousins is the second highest paid player in the NFL going into next year. I don't love that contract. Mm-hmm. Danielle Hunter is one of the highest paid defensive players in the NFL. His cap hits $26 million. I'm okay. If that's an overpay, I'm okay with overpaying one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. You need that. Adam Thielen's actually Brian O'Neill now becomes the third highest paid player on the team starting next year. And then Adam Thielen slots in at fourth. He's like the 9th highest paid wide receiver. That's pretty fair. It's pretty fair. And then Eric Kendricks is the 5th highest paid player starting next year at $13.5 million. Although Harrison Smith also slots in, doesn't he? It looks like they're giving him a $13.5 million cap hit for next year, so he's also sort of tied with Eric Kendricks. So Harrison Smith, among the best at his position. Eric Kendricks, among the best at his position. Adam Thielen, probably not a top 10 receiver anymore, but like when he's healthy and he's on, he's super reliable. Mm-hmm. Brian O'Neill, top 10 at his position. Danielle Hunter, one of the best at his position. So it's tough to argue with. Like, these are the players the Vikings have decided we have to pay these guys top dollar.
Yep.
And even if it's an overpay, we just feel like we have to have these guys on our team. And the only one I really take issue with, unless you want to throw Dalvin Cook in here because he's next. Dalvin Cook would be 6th or 7th on this list at $12 million. The one that I take the most issue with is Kirk, just based on how egregiously high he's being paid relative to where he would rank among the quarterbacks in the league. But long rambling point longer. For the most part, the Vikings have done a pretty good job at identifying the most important players in their prime and giving them money because you need to lean on those guys.
And for 2022, if you found, and this is still an unknown and a potential long shot, but if you found a quarterback in Kellen Mond, now you've got 3 years left of team control of a cheap QB. If Kirk's gone, now you're saving a ton. And the other position at which, if the draft pick works, you're going to have hit pay dirt is Christian Darrisaw. Because left tackles, if you think Brian O'Neill got paid, the left tackle is going to get paid, but he's a first-round pick. So
he's not getting paid for 5 years.
That's 5 years of control. And I mean, you might reward him going into the 5th year. But the point is, yes, if you can have team control of a quality quarterback and left tackle, now you can spread the cash around. I mean, that Kirk contract, and again, this comes back to why we are still seeing, as the season approaches, marquee quarterbacks shove money off into the future, because that's how, when fans say the cap is fake, the cap does not exist. You know why it doesn't exist? Because you've got Pat Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady continually saying, I'm okay with making the cap fake. I want to get paid and I will get paid, but I'll defer this. I'll defer that. And when the Vikings went to Kirk and said that, he said, no, this is not a rip on Kirk. I'm just talking about payroll. But back to the Zimmer comment about the roster as well. And I think this is the telling thing off what I just said as well about Mond and Darrisaw, Phil. When you look at the league now, salary cap, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it came down. The really important thing, and where Rick missing is a bigger and bigger deal, the really important thing is your depth draft picks. Because if you think about it, if the Vikings, and I'm not saying that your draft picks have to be stars, picks from the 4th round through the 7th round do not have to be star players. But if those players can contribute and be trustworthy and give you something, now if a guy gets hurt, it's not Armageddon. And I think we saw this. This is the one thing that is fair to take from the exhibition games. Because, again, starters didn't play, and I'm not going to read a ton into into that. But what I will read into is we saw a lot of depth guys get opportunities to play and to make an impression. And for those guys, these games are extremely important, and they didn't look good. Mm-hmm. That's a problem because we can say, well, a lot of teams, don't have marquee players in roster positions 32 through 53. That's absolutely correct. But the better teams have reliable players. And if you're whiffing on draft picks, you can have 15 of them, you can have 11 of them, or you can have 6 of them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yep. So it's a big contract for Brian O'Neill, but the Vikings absolutely need just the next 3 to 5 years need to know that he's going to be just a pillar along that offensive line. I will say to wrap up this part of the conversation, they feel really good about Cleveland as a versatile, like he could probably play tackle if he needed to too, but they feel really good about him as a guard, either left or right. He's going to be a left guard this season. So if he continues to play pretty well and they're right about him, and if they were right about Darisaw in the first round whenever we get to finally see him on a football field, and then if they're right about Oli Udoh and Brian O'Neill at the beginning of the show, you could hear him praising Oli Udoh. And it's a big if because you got to go 3 for 3 on those guys. But if you do go 3 for 3 on those guys, those are all really cheap team control offensive linemen that make up 60% of your starters. Mm-hmm. Now Bradbury's up in 2 years for a contract, and there's still a big question mark on his head. But if you can sort of see it coming together that they might actually have some stability for the first time if they're right about Udoh and Darisaw. And Kramer, I think it was Andrew Kramer in the Star Tribune had the note. Might have been Chad Graff. I don't know. Can't remember.
Athletic Star Tribune.
Sorry,
Kind of press, maybe.
They do a great job.
SI, ESPN.
Bleacher Report? I'm not really sure. The Vikings have used 17 different guards since 2015. So it's like, how are you supposed to do... How is your quarterback supposed to feel? This is where it all comes back to, like, are you putting Kirk in the best spot, right? How are you supposed to really have full offensive continuity and play at your peak? It's kind of a miracle that they wound up with, like, the 4th or 5th best yardage offense or whatever it was in the NFL last year, and they were knocking on the door of top 10 in points with just such a ridiculous rotating door of bad linemen, Drew Samia and Dakota Dozier. So get some stability. Brian O'Neill helps with that with this contract extension.
I told you the one thing I don't get is this. So Spielman gets hired after Fran Foley is fired and Childress is in charge of personnel, and Spielman is basically his right-hand man. But Rick walks into an extended time period of watching Steve Hutchinson play left guard on the richest guard contract given out at that time. And I don't know why, but the Vikings have decided that guard is just a disposable position. And now it looks like they're addressing it a little bit more. But I don't know how you watch Hutch play for that long. And he was such a special player, and he was an SOB on the field. I loved him. But I don't understand how you watched him for that long and realized his value. And then we're like, oh, but we'll be fine there.
Well, but here's the thing, and this is what I think Eric Eager would say this, and our guy Tyler Fornes from Climbing the Pocket, like the analytical, smart football sort of scouting minds in the media that we bring on this show, they would all say if you're paying like $10-15+ million for guards, you're either doing it wrong or you just have a luxury like, well, Pat Mahomes signed a 10-year contract and we can just shove money down the road and lower his cap hit to 7 and afford Joe Thuney while we're in a Super Bowl window. But it's not that guards are disposable, but they're a little bit more like running backs in that if you've got your tackles and your center and your quarterback's pretty good, as long as your guards aren't garbage, you're fine. It's less about having a Steve Hutchinson, all due respect, and it's more about just having someone who's not a train wreck. And the Vikings haven't even been able to clear that bar lately at those guard positions. They've had among the worst offensive linemen in the NFL playing starting right guard for them. And left guard sometimes too.
There's a happy medium between a guy like Hutch and having 17 though since 2015. Like that literally is taking out the trash. Yeah, we'll take this guy out, stick him on the corner, and go buy a new one.
Yeah, well, I mean, think back like when Brad Childress took over as head coach. Steve Hutchinson was the left guard, but like they didn't have a Pro Bowler at right guard. They had Anthony Herrera and Artis Hicks and guys like that. But those guys were fine. Those guys weren't Hall of Famers. They were just not train wrecks, and that's what the Vikings should be aiming for.
But one but a center who's good and a one guard who's good stabilizes things completely. In fact, I would say this: Brian O'Neill's play probably deserves more credit because he has had a lot of bad right guards. Like that's one group.
That's a great point.
Like you move in sync there. That's not a I'm my own guy. That's a I need you. And you go back to last year, and the reason why that, in my opinion, the jury remains a little bit out on Cleveland is because, yeah, he stabilized things and looked solid at right guard last season, but he replaced two guys, or at least one guy in Samia, who was an absolute colossal failure, and actually today I think was waived with an injury settlement.
Yeah.
So like I'm not going to go out and say, well, Cleveland's fine until I see a prolonged period of success there, because we were weighing them against the guy that for 4 games I think might have been the lowest rated offensive lineman in the league.
Yeah.
All positions.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's amazing. So what we're gonna do starting next week, and maybe we can just do a little taste here. We're going to devote Thursday episodes of Purple Daily to the state of the Vikings offense. So last year, I think it was on Wednesdays, we did the state of Kirk Cousins. We're going to expand it and do an offensive-centric deep dive every single week. We're going to bring guests on Thursdays oftentimes. Guys like Nate Tice will be joining the show from time to time, Tyler Fornes from Climbing the Pocket, and others as well. And we're just going to devote Thursday episodes to the Vikings offense. So we don't have to do a super, super deep dive because I think we've covered all things that need to be covered in the weeks leading up to this. I think we've said everything we need to say about like the lead up to the Vikings-Bengals game here. But what is your general thought on what this offense should be expected to do in 2021? They were 11th in points last year, and they were like 5th or something in yards. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are hoping that they can build off that and maybe even get better. So what is a realistic expectation or bar for this Vikings offense this year?
I think it's with the skill position players that they have and an offensive line that I'm just going to assume. I don't think it's fair to assume it's going to be a disaster from day one, and they actually have addressed it quite a bit. So I'm going to assume it can hold up. I'm not asking it to be great. I'm asking it to hold up. They should be in the top 10 in points. When you look at Justin Jefferson, when you look at Thielen, the loss of Irv Smith Jr. hurts a lot, but you still got 2 receivers that are special. You've got Dalvin Cook, who, by the way, can very much be part of the passing game. I think I'm not really worried about yards because yards is just sort of a old school stat. I'm worried about your points. This should be a team that is top 10 in points. But I'll say this. If I had a pecking order of things I'm curious to see, Kirk is one just because he's the quarterback, and the quarterback's always going to be one on that list in my opinion. But 2 is Clint Kubiak and what he's allowed to do. So this might not even be all on Clint, but if Zim says we're going to run, Clint's not going to say no, we're not, Mike. So my expectation is to be top 10 in points. But starting on Sunday against the Bengals, I have a real interest in seeing what this team is allowed to do with its personnel. The personnel exists to be successful. That's not the question. The question is, are the gloves taken off, and is Kirk allowed to maximize what Kirk can do well? Because if there's any defense for Kirk, I do think there have been times where he's probably not, how can I put this, empowered? He's not empowered to do what he does well, which probably runs a little bit counter to what the coach wants. So I come to Kirk, I come to Zimmer and Kubiak because I do think the people playing on this offense give you a chance where you should be top 10 in points scored, and conversely on defense, I think that you should be top 10 in points allowed as far as the good side. So
if Darisaw comes back at some point starting in like week 4, week 5, and he's passable at left tackle, like he's just not a disaster, and if Oli Udoh is just better than Dakota Dozier, the offensive line should be better as a whole than it was last year. I'm assuming a lot there because Darisaw hasn't practiced all offseason, so I'm definitely like making a leap here. But offensive line should be better. As scary as it is, Jefferson might be better. Thielen is Thielen. I know you lost Irv Smith, so but again, Irv Smith wasn't a huge weapon for you last year when you finished just outside the top 10 in points. So I think where I want this offense to go is they averaged 27 points per game last year, 11th in the league, like we said. And, I think everyone's praising it. Wow, look at that. 27 points a game. The defense was a disaster. The offense had to come back time after time in the second half and get into these shootouts.
Mm-hmm.
Round of applause for the 11th ranked. That's not too bad. 11th ranked offense. 11th ranked offense doesn't win you a Super Bowl. And that is the stated mission of this show day after day. We want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it's a fair expectation to say, all right, cool, you guys have to be the number one offense in the league. You have to compete with Pat Mahomes and company. But the top scoring offenses in the NFL last year were the Packers, 32 points a game. The Bills, 31 points a game, tied with the Buccaneers, 31 points a game. The Chiefs were just a tick under 30 points a game. So you might think, well, that's not that far off. The Vikings were 27. Well, that's a field goal and or up to 5 points less per game than the Packers, the Buccaneers, basically the Bills, the teams that were there in championship on Championship Sunday, about to get to the Super Bowl. That's a big, think about, looking at a Vegas point spread. If somebody were to say, all right, so it's going to go from a 2-point spread to a 7-point spread or whatever because you're playing a more explosive offense. That's a big gap in the NFL. So I want them to flirt with those teams. I know that's a lot to put on this offense, but Kirk, he's in his prime. He is constantly showing up. I saw another one today on all of these, the only 5 quarterbacks to ever accomplish this in the history of the NFL type lists, right? All right, let's do it. Let's go from 11th to 5th in points per game. And let's not be afraid to set that expectation, all right? I'm not saying everyone needs to be fired if they don't. We can evaluate that in January or February. But 11th isn't good enough unless you have one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in the NFL if your goal is to really do damage in January.
And this might be tough, but what Clint is going to have to do as well is he's going to have to find ways to make Kirk successful. The prime example is what arguably to me, outside of the Billick, Denny Green, 98 high-powered, high-flying, original greatest show on turf Vikings. The greatest season I think I've seen from an OC here is 2017 with Pat Shurmur. Mm-hmm. He had a huge role in taking Case Keenum, a career backup, and milking him, and he certainly does not have the talent that Kirk does, and milking him for everything he was worth. I mean, he got every last morsel of play calling success and bootlegs and featured what Case did well. And that was never concerned about, what does Mike think we should do? I don't recall that ever being a story. It was always, what does Case do well? And that led to the conversations about, oh, he looks like Tarkenton a little bit. He's rolling out. He's scrambling a little bit. He can do that. Now, Kirk can't do that, and I'm not asking him to. But I am saying Shurmur deserves a ton of credit because, 1, he made it look simple, and 2, he looked at his offense and quarterback and said, what works here? Not what does Mike want to do? And he didn't. I'm not saying that he had some high-flying offensive show that Mike said, this is awful, this is an affront to football, but they did find a way to make it work. And I think the most important thing is Kirk is your quarterback, whether you like him or not. He is your quarterback, and he is talented, and he has been statistically very damn good. So I think the question becomes, how do you couple his statistical qualities and quantities with success on a weekly basis, not being concerned about, well, he threw too much. If it gets screwed up, it gets screwed up. But if you sit back and say, we're going to run the ball all the time, that's not going to work. And the other thing that we need to be a little bit cognizant of too, and I think it's a big deal because it fell apart with Stephon Diggs. Justin Jefferson's going into his 2nd year, and this kid is beyond talented. So if you go with the old, this is how we do things, Justin, he's going to be through year 2 and be like, really? You need to feature him too. And he's not, and I don't think it's fair in 2021 to say, be a good soldier. You just do your job and we'll worry about our job. I think you look at a quarterback, Phil, that can throw the deep ball, that has the arm talent. And I think he's a little bit afraid to at times, but that can't be the point. And you look at a receiver who I really do believe talent-wise might be a step up from Diggs. Mm-hmm. Now, not as far as established success, but I'm just saying pure raw talent. Jefferson might be more special than Diggs was. And so I think you look at that and say, how do we maximize that and get over what our fears of we didn't run enough?
Jefferson was 18th in the NFL in targets last year, 41 targets fewer than Stephon Diggs had in Buffalo. And I think that needs to change. I think Justin Jefferson needs to be one of the 5 most targeted receivers in the NFL, at least 1 or 2 more targets per game. And again, it may not sound like much, but it could be the difference between a dud play and a chunk play that puts you into field goal range or something, right?
Play.
You like that? Yeah. We're
play.
talking chunk plays here on Purple Daily.
Football.
Tell me about 9 routes.
I'll tell you what, if you want to avoid chunking the golf ball, stop into PXG Minneapolis. It's a golfer's paradise, all right? These new Gen 4 clubs, they're going to help you stop chunking the ball, all right? These are some of the best clubs PXG has ever made, some of the best clubs on the market. There's clubs for all different types of players. You can check them out again at PXG Minneapolis in Southdale Center and find out more at pxg.com/Minneapolis. Cheers to you, Judd. I'm assuming you're drinking Surly on this fine evening as we record this episode.
Furious? I have no idea what you're talking about. There's none near me, none at all. I kid. It's right here. Yes. I am talking about, and I am drinking, Phil. I don't know if you knew this or not. Minnesota's favorite IPA, Surly.
Yeah,
the football weekend, I'm going to tell you right now, breaking news, it starts Thursday. It starts Thursday, the National Football League season, and basically from Thursday on, you should be on your couch, and I want you to be sitting with a Surly beer. Mine, Furious IPA, which is fantastic. Don't settle, Phil Mackey. Get Surly.
Love it. So I don't know. We've been blabbing here for a half hour. I have a random Viking of the week teed up, and usually you go against Declan.
Yep.
I almost feel like this is like one of those deals where, you know, like if the racer doesn't show up, if it's like a drag race and the other guy's car doesn't work, then like, usually, do you want me to? I'd like to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you've won like 5 in a row, and so all right, let's go. The random Viking of the week here. Actually, I don't have the dramatic music because we have a different setup tonight because we're recording differently. So I'm going to hit you with just an NFL bed here.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain.
Okay.
Could go all the way.
So because it's just me versus you, and I'm the one that's trying to disguise this random Viking of the week.
Right.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 11 clues.
Okay.
If you get it within 9 clues, if you get it within 9 clues, like by the 9th clue, then I will consider this an official win over Declan. Unless he somehow slides back in here and
gets, you never know what's going to happen.
He told us like, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Yeah, dude. There's no chance. This is the first time he's probably ever. Well, I think he's been around small children
this
before.
Child before.
Okay.
Yeah. This kid just high maintenance. Let's be honest about it. Let's call a spade a spade.
It's ridiculous. All right, this former Viking hails from Winton, California.
Winton. Okay.
Winton, California.
Okay.
This former Viking played 8 seasons in the NFL.
But not all with the Vikings, clearly. Okay.
Yeah, you can ask me questions, and I can decide if I want to answer them.
Yeah, I'm not at the point of asking yet, but when you say that he played 8 seasons in the league, that clearly indicates to me only a portion of them were spent in Minnesota. Okay.
This random Viking of the week played in a Super Bowl.
Oh, but it's not going to be with the Vikings. Very crafty, because you're not going to give me something from
How do
the
you
70s.
know it's not with the Vikings?
I don't think it is. Was it with the Vikings?
No. I'll answer that. No.
Okay. Played in the Super Bowl. Okay. Question 4.
All right. This random Viking of the week was once regarded as one of the fastest players in the NFL.
Hold on.
I'll give you 3 incorrect guesses like usual, by the way.
Yeah. So we did
That's 4 clues. You have 5 left.
one of the fastest players in the NFL. Okay, this should be starting to ring a bell. Is this a wide receiver? An offensive player?
Do I want to answer that? I'll answer it and say it is an offensive player.
So it's either a running back or a wide receiver.
And we're going to count that as a clue. That's 5.
Okay. And it's 5. So it's
So you have 4 more clues left.
so
This
okay. Yep. No. I'm thinking out loud. Go ahead.
okay. This random Viking of the week was a 3rd-round draft pick, not by the Vikings.
8 years. Didn't start with the Vikings. Won a Super Bowl somewhere else.
This random Viking of the week spent his entire career in the same division, the NFC North.
Oh. Hold on. So he was drafted by either Green Bay, although I'm trying to think of guys who came here from Green Bay, Detroit.
This random Viking of the week.
Wait. So, wait. So, to backtrack, you said he won a Super Bowl, but not in Minnesota.
I said he played in a Super Bowl.
Or played in a Super Bowl. So this, just wait, give me 2 seconds here. So it has to be a Packer or a Bear.
Well, my next clue will be helpful regardless.
It can't be a Lion. Yep. Go ahead.
All right, you have 2 more clues left.
I know. That's why I'm taking this very seriously.
And 3 guesses.
I'm competing against myself.
All right, this random Viking of the week loves alliteration.
An offensive player, though. An offensive player drafted in the NFC North who played for the Packers or the Bears, who loves alliteration. Oh, my God.
I'm trying to think of what my final clue should be to you here.
Okay,
I don't know if I want to give it away or not.
Alliteration.
This random Viking of the week made $23 million playing in the NFL.
Okay.
Most of it on 1 contract.
Okay. All right.
You got 3 guesses.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to start guessing. 23 million, though. And
That's great.
because here's what throws me off: the speed factor.
Mm-hmm.
So there's players that I have in my mind, but they weren't considered fast enough to be considered the fastest player in the National Football League at one time.
I'm gonna. In fact, let me just see here, real quick. I might give you a bonus clue here.
Okay.
It's possible I may have. I don't know if I overstated the speed of this player. This player's main asset was his speed.
Bernard Berrien.
There you go. Yep, Bernard Berrien.
That is
he
correct.
Was
fast. 99-yard touchdown.
So I'm going to give you the official ding button here because you earned it with that one.
Bernard Berrien. So the Bears, yeah.
Yeah, because he averaged 20 yards per reception and was only a one-way deep threat. He scored the 99-yard touchdown on Sunday or Monday night.
And he played in the Super Bowl with the Bears in Miami, right?
Yes.
But they lost to Colts, is that right?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Bernard Berrien.
I knew it had to be a Bear probably or a Packer, but there's no there's a ton of guys from the Packers that played here, but I don't think any of them have been speedsters, right?
No,
Greg
Robert
Jennings,
Ferguson, definitely not.
Ferg couldn't run by that time he got here. Yeah.
Yeah, none of those guys were outrunning anyone. I'll tell you what, if you win $100,000 from the Minnesota Lottery, you don't have to worry about outrunning. People are going to run to you.
Yeah, and I'm going to run, and I'm going to get faster then because I'm going to run away from them.
Yep. There's a $5 game that can win you up to $100,000, a $2 Skull game that can win you $15,000, and great second chance prizes like Vikings tickets. Say, I'm into Viking scratch games from the Minnesota Lottery. Must be 18 or older to play. Also, Moon Motorsports has been around for 50-plus years in the state of Minnesota, in Monticello specifically, and they are all about exciting power sports and fun rides like ATVs, motorcycles, snowmobiles. It's the most exciting and largest inventory selection in the region, family-owned and operated. Check them out at moonmotorsports.com here. We are counting down the days and the hours until...
look who's back.
Oh, there he is.
Look,
all right.
Look who's back. You got to tell them the bad news. Phil.
You just lost Random Viking of the Week. I made Judd fight for it. I said, Judd, if you can get it within 9 clues, then you officially will rack up a win over Declan.
Who was the Random Viking of the Week?
Bernard Berrien was the Random Viking of the Week. So I believe Judd has now won 6 consecutive.
That's okay. I lost last night.
Because Declan is unable to calm babies.
Oh, and now Declan's going to be drinking with the child there. Hold on a second. I'm going to call child services, Dex.
Oh, no. Dex getting all liquored up.
Yeah.
Dex, like, darn.
Darn.
They're gonna take me away.
Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap on this episode of Purple Daily Vikings Entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. I should mention, Marconi finalist, Purple Daily. That's right. Phil Mackey, Judd Zolgad, executive producer, and master babysitter Declan Goff. We'll see you guys tomorrow.